Welcome back to episode 45 of my Pokemon Soul Silver journey. Today, I am going to be taking on the Elite Four. Before we start, please remember, this is not a Nuzlocke. I trained all my Pokemon to level 47 and evolved Yanma into Yanmega. I used any TMs I could to make my team ready, and then I headed into the Elite Four. The first Elite Four member is Will and their psychic Pokemon. Will starts first with Xatu, and I figured it was only right to start with my starter, Feraligatr. I use Crunch, and Xatu barely holds on to return a Psychic. All these full restores are why the Elite Four are so annoying. A second Crunch leaves Xatu barely holding on, a third finishes it. Will sends out Jinx next, so I send out Rapidash, who only needed one Flame Wheel to get their job done. Next is Slowbro, so I send out Ampharos to Thunder Punch it. It only does half, and the next one does less because of a curse from Slowbro. Slowbro becomes paralyzed, and I am expecting a full restore from Will, but instead, a final Thunder Punch finishes it. Next is Executor, and I switch back to Rapidash. Flame Wheel does about half, and the responding Psychic does about half of Rapidash's health. The second Flame Wheel finishes that, and we move on to the final Xatu. I send out Lapras to get a chance. A single Ice Beam takes down Xatu, and I defeated my first Elite Four member, Will. I healed up my Pokemon in between, and then headed up towards the second Elite Four member, Koga. Koga decided to start with Ariados, and I started with Rapidash. The first Flame Wheel almost took the spider out, but Koga responds with a full restore, and we do the whole thing over again. I used Stomp to finish the battle with Ariados, and decided to keep Rapidash in for Koga's Forretress. Unfortunately, I'm an idiot and use Stomp again and let Forretress set up toxic spikes. I'm finally able to use Flame Wheel, but it doesn't do enough and more spikes come out. One more Flame Wheel and we move on to Mook, so I switch out to Noctowl. Noctowl needed to use a bunch of Zen Headbutts and almost lost its life to a Gunk Shot before it was finally able to take Muck down. Koga sends out Crobat, so I switch to Ampharos. A couple of Thunder Punches did damage to Crobat, but Ampharos missed too many times, and eventually the poison got to it. I switched to Yanmega, who survived a wing attack and finished Crobat with Pursuit. Koga's last Pokemon was Venomoth, and I switched to Rapidash. One Flame Wheel was not enough, and Rapidash took some serious damage from Psychic. Koga responded with a full restore, and another Flame Wheel brought us back to where we were. One more Flame Wheel, and Rapidash defeated Venomoth, and I defeated Elite Four member Koga. I healed up again, and then headed towards the third Elite Four member, Bruno and his fighting-type Pokemon. They sent out Hitmontop, and I sent out Yanmega, who took some damage from a quick attack, but returned more than half with Aerial Ace. I try Aerial Ace again, but Bruno switches to Onix, and the attack does almost nothing. I switch to Lapras, who takes some damage, but a single Brine takes down Onix. Bruno switched back to Hitmontop, and I switched back to Yanmega. Yanmega took damage from Quick Attack, but finished Hitmontop with an Aerial Ace. Next was Hitmonlee, and I decided to stay to keep Yanmega in. Yanmega almost took Hitmonlee out with Aerial Ace, and Hitmonlee did the same with Blaze Kick. Bruno used a full restore, and Yanmega used another Aerial Ace, and we ended up back where we were. This time, Bruno doesn't use an item, and Aerial Ace finishes Hitmonlee. Hitmonchan is coming out next, and I decide to stay in again. Hitmonchan is too fast and takes out Yanmega with Bullet Punch. Next, I switch to Noctowl, who does a decent chunk of damage with Air Slash, but takes a chunk of damage from Ice Punch. A second Air Slash from Noctowl takes him out, and Machamp is next. I decide to stay in with Noctowl and try to see how much a Zen Headbutt will do. Not very much, apparently. A Rock Slide from Machamp takes out Noctowl, and I decide to send out Feraligatr next. An Ice Fang from Feraligatr activates Machamp's Citrus Berry, and they are back in the green. Cross Chop almost brings Feraligatr to half. Feraligatr's next Ice Fang caused Machamp to flinch, and another brings Machamp down to the red. There he responds with another Cross Chop. Bruno then uses a full restore, and Feraligatr uses another Ice Fang. I switch to using Crunch for my final move, and Machamp finishes Feraligatr with a Rock Slide. The next Pokemon I switched out to was Rapidash. I used Flame Wheel, and it wasn't enough to finish Machamp, but it did burn them. After surviving a rock slide, the burn damage was enough to take down Machamp, and I defeated Bruno. I heal up again and then head up the ramp to take on the fourth member of the Elite Four, Karen. They send out Umbreon to start, and I chose Yanmega. I decide to use U-turn for the first move because it is super effective, but then I have to decide who I want to take some damage. I ultimately chose Feraligatr, who took some damage from Feint Attack. I tried using Crunch for no good reason, and got confused as a reward. Feraligatr kept hurting itself and got hit with Payback too, until eventually it got a slash off and brought Umbreon down to the red. Karen used a full restore on Umbreon, and I used this as an opportunity to switch out to Ampharos. Ampharos' first Signal Beam did some damage, but the second was a critical hit and finished Umbreon. Karen decided to send out Murkrow, and I stay in with Ampharos. Ampharos takes some damage from a Feint Attack, but it only needed a single Thunder Punch to take down Murkrow. Next Pokemon Karen sends out is Houndoom, and I counter with Lapras. A critical hit Flamethrower from Houndoom does a lot of damage, but a critical hit Brine from Lapras leaves Houndoom with even less health. Houndoom then heals up some with a Citrus Berry. I try to see if Lapras can survive a regular Flamethrower, but it can't. I send out Feraligatr next, but honestly, it was for nothing, because a single Dark Pulse takes him out. The next Pokemon I send out to be finished by Houndoom is Yanmega. This is why I have to remind you it's not a Nuzlocke. The next Pokemon I send out is Noctowl, who survives a Crunch and finishes Houndoom with Air Slash. After that, Karen sends out Gengar, and I decide to switch to Rapidash. The first Flame Wheel from Rapidash leaves Gengar burned. The second Flame Wheel almost finishes Gengar, but it survives to hit Rapidash with a Focus Blast. Luckily, it still faints from the burn. The last Pokemon Karen has is Vileplume, and I decide to stay in with Rapidash. The first Flame Wheel does about half the damage. Vileplume responds with a Stun Spore that leaves Rapidash paralyzed. Vileplume then uses Petal Dance, which doesn't do a lot of damage, but Rapidash is unable to move because it is paralyzed. The second Petal Dance from Vileplume faints Rapidash, and I have to switch out to Noctowl to try to finish the battle. An Air Slash was all it took, and I defeated Karen and the final member of the Elite Four. Now all that is left is the champion. I heal all my Pokemon and head in to challenge Lance. Lance starts the battle with Gyarados, and I start mine with Yanmega. Yanmega uses U-turn, and I switch out to Ampharos to avoid Gyarados' Intimidate. Ampharos takes some damage from Ice Fang, but Static leaves Gyarados paralyzed. Now a single Thunder Punch is enough to take down Gyarados. The next Pokemon Lance sends out is their strongest Dragonite. I decide to leave Ampharos in, and it gets destroyed by Outrage. The next Pokemon I send out is Feraligatr, and I used Ice Fang to do a little more than half their damage. Dragonite restored some health with a Citrus Berry and then used Outrage again. A second Ice Fang from Feraligatr took the first of 3 Dragonites down. The second Dragonite came out, and I decided to stay in with Feraligatr and try to use another Ice Fang. This Dragonite was faster than me and used Dragon Rush. The next Pokemon I sent out was Rapidash, but I can't give you a good reason why. Flame Wheel did next to no damage, and it only took a few moves from Dragonite to finally take down Rapidash. The next Pokemon I sent out was Lapras, and I got extremely lucky because Dragonite missed its Thunder and Lapras was able to take it down in one Ice Beam. The next Pokemon Lance sent out was Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl's Rock Slide did a lot of damage to Lapras, and Lapras' Ice Beam did a lot of damage to Aerodactyl. The second Rock Slide was enough to cause Lapras to faint. Now this is where you have to remember it is not a Nuzlocke. I'm only trying to complete the game, not beat it perfectly. I used items to heal up a few of my Pokemon while sacrificing the others. I switch out to Feraligatr, who takes a Thunder Fang from Aerodactyl, but responds with an Ice Fang that is enough to take it down. The next Pokemon that Lance sends out is the final Dragonite, and it starts by using Thunder Wave on Feraligatr. Feraligatr can't get a hit off, and because of that, eventually faints before doing any damage to Dragonite. The next Pokémon I send out is Ampharos, and I use that time to heal up Feraligatr again. Dragon Rush does a lot of damage, but it gives me a chance to heal Rapidash as well. Dragonite tried using Blizzard, and Ampharos avoided the attack, so I heal up Noctowl as well. Dragonite missed again, so I figured that was fate telling me to finish everyone and heal up Yanmega too. Ampharos finally fainted, and I sent out Feraligatr. Dragonite started by paralyzing Feraligatr with Thunder Wave, but it was still able to use Ice Fang and do some damage to Dragonite. Champion Lance used a full restore on Dragonite, and Feraligatr was too paralyzed to move. The next Ice Fang from Feraligatr brought Dragonite to the red. Another full restore for Dragonite and another paralyze for Feraligatr. It can't survive another Dragon Rush, and I have to send out Lapras. Lapras survives a Dragon Rush from Dragonite and then responds with a powerful enough Ice Beam to defeat it. The last Pokémon that Champion Lance has to send out is Charizard, and I decide to keep Lapras in. Lapras survives an Air Slash and responds with Brine. It can't survive the following Dragon Claw, and I have to switch into Rapidash. I use Rapidash to heal up Feraligatr and Lapras. An Air Slash from Charizard finally takes Rapidash out, and I send out Lapras again. Air Slash only does a little damage, and Brine does a lot. But Champion Lance uses a full restore on Charizard. Lapras used Rain Dance. Charizard used Air Slash again, and Lapras used Brine again. Charizard used Air Slash, and Lapras flinched. A Shadow Claw from Charizard was enough to finish Lapras, and I switched out to Feraligatr, who I thought it would be appropriate to finish the Elite Four with. Feraligatr doesn't know any stronger Water-type move than Water Gun, and so it takes more than one to complete the battle, and so Lance is able to use a full restore. I continue spitting water on Charizard until I finally defeat it, and with that, I have defeated the Elite Four and the champion, and I am officially halfway through the game. They add my Pokémon team to the Hall of Fame, and I have completed the first half of the game. I really appreciate everyone who has followed and liked these videos, and I am planning to make more. If you made it this far into the video, please give it a like. If you have any suggestions on which Pokémon game I should start next, please leave it in the comments. Next episode, we will be heading into the Kanto region.